Well, hello there. Good evening and welcome to the program. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, where we discuss policy, governance, and a variety of issues within and outside Nigeria. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed, standing in for your regular host, Shafiu Suleiman. Nigeria, the most populous black nation in the world, Africa's largest democracy, and of course the largest economy, is going through one of its most difficult moments in history, as a socio-economic and socio-political crisis in the country is continuing to inundate millions of Nigerians as they struggle to come to terms with what the solutions is likely going to be. The current administration under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is struggling to get ahead of the problems currently faced by hundreds of millions of Nigerians, from security to the economy, as well as social cohesion that is needed to guarantee the prosperity, progress, and development of the nation. At the heart of the solution lies the debate around what needs to be done to reposition Nigeria for greater prosperity, where the constitution itself needs to be amended significantly to bring about sustainable development for the different parts of the country. Restructuring has always been a debate that has been had over the years, but as the current National Assembly takes a look at the constitution once again with an aim to fine-tune some of the laws currently contained in the 1999 constitution as amended, what can Nigerians realistically expect in the months and years to come as far as rejigging and repositioning Nigeria for future successes is concerned? Tonight on the program, we speak to a scholar who understands the Nigerian constitution inside out and was also part of those that helped frame a part of the various provisions that we have today in the Constitution. And of course, he'll help us understand and answer the question whether constitutional review or amendment is going to be the solution going forward. Joining us on the program tonight is Professor Awalu Hamisu Yadudu, who will be joining us from his residence in Kano for this conversation tonight. Prof, thank you most kindly for joining us on the program, and good evening.
Good evening.
Right. Okay. First, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back in just a moment to get the conversation on the way with Professor Yadudu. More on this after this. Welcome back to the program. In case you just joined us, you're watching Daily Politics on Trust TV. Our guest tonight is an academic who understands a variety of issues around Nigeria as we continue to digest what has been happening and what is still happening to this country that has all of the promising indicators about successes that can be attained, but that is still struggling with structural issues. At the heart of it, of course, the Constitution itself. So, Prof, let's get the conversation started this way. For a lot of people, one of the reasons why we are where we are today is because of the document, the Gronum, as many have described it times without number, is itself defective. And that is why we're inundated with a variety of some of these issues that are quite systematic. Where do you stand on the Constitution as part of the problems that we're witnessing today?
My take really is that it may surprise some to hear this, that essentially our problem is not a problem of the Constitution in the manner that people think that all our problems are constitutional issues, and that if we do not come to terms with the constitutions, we would not make any progress. Essentially, though, any document that is written to define the organs of state, to create rights, to regulate relations between organs of the state in a federation cannot be perfect. And as a document which is not perfect, it is amenable to being altered, to being changed. It depends on how you want to go about changing it. So the first point I made was not to mean that the Constitution is not a subject for consideration to improve things. But essentially, some seem to take the position that if you do not throw away this Constitution, you will not make any progress. That's not my view. I believe that there are things that can be adjusted, corrected, tweaked, and modified, and made to meet certain of our difficulties and the challenges we are going through.
And in talking about the tweaking, the amendments, the reviews that have become traditional from one administration to another, from one National Assembly to the other, give me a sense of what you make of the quality of those amendments vis-a-vis the challenges that we've had to deal with years, year after year, successively, especially in recent time.
Well, again, I lost you a little bit, but I got a sense of your question that there has been this perennial alteration process that we have been going through by the previous national assemblies, and that we are about to embark on another process. And why is it that the previous ones have not quite addressed our fundamental problems? Again, I think in my view is that I do not think that you can bring about a change of the quantum size that some would want all at once. Yes, the previous exercises have done one thing or another, but they have not quite addressed things as the public would want. To me, that should not be the reason why we should not continue to seek to perfect this document that we operate, because we do encounter problems with it. And as I said, to be honest, I don't think essentially our problem is constitutional. It has to do more with those who operate the Constitution. And for example, some are saying, let's go to parliamentary. The parliamentary system of government worked because our politicians, our leaders of those times wanted it to work, and they put every effort to make it work. And so it's not so much that intrinsically the parliamentary system is superior to the presidential system, and that if you replace one with the other, things would suddenly take a different direction. I think there may be an argument to go parliamentary, and but I don't think it is the panacea for our problems in this country, because for as long as those who operate the Constitution, the members of the National Assembly, the executive, and the general law enforcement agency, if they do not want it to work, and if they do not work according to its terms, there would not be any improvement that we can see going forward. So my take is that the previous exercises have been incremental. They may not be to the full satisfaction of all, but I don't think it is the reason that if they are not to our satisfaction, we don't need to undergo amendment processes again to still perfect this document. This document, the 1999 Constitution, is not the 10 Commandments. It's not like the 10 Commandments handed down to Moses, and which admit of no correction or no amendment or no changes or no alterations. It is a document for the people. If we can operate it, if we find difficulties in its portions, we can address the issues. And let us not forget, we have addressed some challenges which the Constitution have thrown our way along the process in the constitutional amendment processes that we have undertaken in the past.
Very telling there about the flexibility of the Constitution, as we've come to know. Even yourself as a law scholar, you would know that the law is always going to be a work in progress. But give me a sense of the structural issues that have come to light, especially with regards to practicing true federalism in this country. Many have opined that what we have right now, there is a misalignment, whether it's about the Constitution and its provisions or the way we operate the government. And there are some structural issues that have come to light now regarding security, where the current National Assembly is considering state police as one of those issues that need to be tweaked in the security architecture of this country. There's also a lot to be said about much of the burden now being cascaded down to the sub-nationals, where a lot more people can be reached. The role of the local governments also need to be reviewed and be given a lot more prominence, and so on and so forth. Give me your take on why it is a lot more harder to achieve these, knowing what you know about the Constitution, its evolution over the years, and where we are today, and with all the deliberations that have been put forth, why it is difficult to attain some of these deliverables.
Well, again, I think quite evidently, law enforcement in Nigeria has proven to be such a challenge and such in a conundrum that we are not making any progress. And if there is consensus to have some powers of policing to be devolved to the lower tiers of government, I think it is only fair and right to do so. And so the issue about state policing would be one key element that if you attend to it, it may, or it promises to improve on our law enforcement and law and security in the country. It is also something that we have in the past tried. Remember, before the 1966 coup, and actually up to the 1976 law reform, sorry, no reform, the local government reform, we did have native police in this country, which complemented the national police, and therefore, if we want to do it, we can, and that the
It appears we're having some challenges with the connection there to Professor Awalu Hamisu Yadudu, a law scholar, speaking to us about
of engagement that delineate the powers of the state police in relation to
some of these issues. It appears we have Prof back on, so let's listen in. Yeah, Prof, go ahead. We lost the connection there for a moment, but you're back on. So please finish your line of thought.
And then I'd had him repeat the same question. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, so the
are we on the same page?
Some of these deliverables that Nigerians expect, whether it's state police, whether it's more powers devolved to the state, the decentralization of our government so that the states will have not just more expectations on them, but more responsibility, more resources, and to perfectly restructure the system so that the burden is not centralized, because the centrality of some of these responsibilities have led to the gaps that we're witnessing, whether it's with the security or with economic developments and so on and so forth. So you were giving us your take on, you know, the state police, for instance, and why it is gaining such a momentum right now.
Yeah, as for the other components, for example, some would be speaking of true federalism, where there is a true federal system and a false one. A federal system is what the hello? Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Prof. I can hear you.
I'm sorry. All right. So I'm saying that when people speak of true federalism or decentralization, and no federal systems that is a false one. It all depends on how you distribute powers. Personally, if you look at the claim has been made that so much of the federal, regional powers have now been given to the federal system. Truly, it is not so much that a lot of powers of the regions have been snatched away and given to the federal system. if you look at the 1963 federal constitution and the regional constitutions, there have been quite some few legislative powers that have been taken away from the center and given to the, taken away from the regions and given to the center. But I think it's the decision to transfer some powers that dramatic or that quantum in height, such as to say that we have a centralized system of government. It is how the politicians run the state that makes it look like a centralized system. Now, one must also add that, you see, the way we have dismembered the regions from a 4-region federation to a 36-region, a 36-state federal system, of necessity, it has meant the fragments that come together to make the federation are so weakened. It's not so much that the powers that have been given to them have been taken away. It is the act of fragmentation. You can imagine that the northern region of Nigeria, which is now about 19 states, used to have powers that they could exercise and therefore they could be felt. But if we have these 19 states in place of the regional government, no amount of powers that you take away from the federation and you give to the state will make them stronger or exercise more powers. And there is also what we know in constitutional law, that if you give powers that are shared between the state and the federation, the doctrine of covering the field, that is to say, whenever the Federal National Assembly makes a legislation on a subject matter that they share with the states powers have already been overtaken, and therefore they cannot legislate contrary to the legislation made by the Federal National Assembly. So that even if we're arguing that we give more powers in the concurrent list, take away some powers from the list, exclusive list, and to give them to the states, this principle of covering the field, which is to say that any law which a federal legislature has legislated on, and in an area which is concurrent between the state and the federation, the power of the state has been taken away, and therefore they cannot legislate in those areas. So that it's not that the legislative list in the exclusive list is too many. It is that the way we distribute the powers in a federal system, in a presidential system, would not make it amenable for the state to legislate. Right. Of course, in addition to the point I've made that the fragmentation is important as a factor. I'm not saying that we would need to go back to the 4 regions, and I'm not too sure if the political class is ready even to go to the much touted 6-zonal structure that some people seem to be arguing. But I think the over-centralization of power that people seem to argue against is less about what the Constitution has provided, but more, in my view, to the fragmentation of the units making up the federation.
Right. And in speaking about one of those contentious issues, because we have seen in 2 different to 3 different election cycles, right, the fragmentation along ethno-religious or ethno-regional lines, where you get a sense that there is a part of this country that feels alien to the next part of the country. And it has crystallized in the build-up to the 2023 presidential elections, where we have 2 northern candidates, 1 southwestern candidate, another southeastern candidate. All of these 4 are very popular within the country. But it signposted default lines that exist. And it pushes this narrative of rotations from region to region, whether we're going to consider that, or a 1-term limit, so that we get a sense of this spread when it comes to representation. Give me your take on what you think this may likely achieve, or if there is grounds for that argument as far as constitutionally, putting it in black and white is concerned.
Personally, I think as a constitutional lawyer, and knowing that anything you reduce to constitutional language or prescription is open to litigation, and it can lead to challenges which may really create a fundamental problem for the polity. So my view would be that I do not think it is advisable or is wise or operationally practicable to legislate in the Constitution that a rotation between North and South would take place, or even rotation between Muslim and Christian would take place. If you were to do that, you would create another monumental problem that you will end up in court, and the system would be put in inertia and suspended, and there will be serious constitutional problems. In my view, the wisdom of rotation, which has been a political issue, and that politicians and political parties have worked to create a winning team, should not be a matter for the Constitution to enshrine. Even by reference to the last election, I think what we saw in the last election actually was not divisiveness. It was divisiveness on the social media. But if you disaggregate the voting pattern, it did not quite work Muslim, Christian, or Northern, Southern. It is the candidate that had the greatest appeal to the greatest number of electorates in the country that made it. And it is not only about the presidential election, but of course you can also speak about that one. So to me, I don't think it is a wise thing or desirable or even workable to cast in ironstone the constitutional provision that there will be rotation, north-south, Muslim, Christian, or southwest versus southeast. It is unworkable. I think if we were to allow the constitutional provision presently that requires spread, you cannot become Nigeria's president simply by saying in your zone. You have to have such a territorial and geographical acceptance across the federation, which is demonstrated by the need that you must score the majority of votes cast in the election, and you also must score at least maybe earn at least 2/3 of the votes cast, one quarter of the votes cast in 2/3 of the states of the federation, meaning that no one can sit in Kano and claim that because we have a large electoral vote, he can become president without appealing to the rest of the country. He can have his votes in Kano and other parts of the north, but he will need to show he has support in other parts of the country such that he transcends his local base. So I don't subscribe to the view that we should make zoning or rotation a constitutional matter. Okay. It's not going to solve our problem,
I'd love to get your
in my view,
on two things. First, the Constitutional Review Committee has been set up. They're down doing their work. It is expected that they're going to reach out to experts like you, for instance, who have worked on the Constitution. There will be, public hearings and so on and so forth. What are your expectations looking at where we are right now as a nation and some of those gaps, some of those imperfections within our constitutional provisions that we need to work on? What are your expectations regarding that, and what is the timeline in your expectations? Does the current assembly need to work on so that some of those deliverables can, of course, be delivered? And also, finally, with regards to where we are as a country, Where do you think the Constitution stands right now?
Yes.
It's supposed to be the embodiment of the will of the people. Do you think that there's an alignment between the Constitution and where Nigerians are right now as a people?
Okay, I was saying that I didn't get the...
Okay, Prof, the first question was about the ongoing constitution review that, you know, has been set up by the current National Assembly.
To be impatient with
going forward. And with regards to the Constitution itself, is there an alignment between what the Constitution stands for, what it represents, and of course, what Nigerians as citizens embody right now?
I think as the National Assembly embarks upon the process to alter the Constitution, I would imagine that there will be a public buy-in and an active participation in the process to really bring out the issue that the public would want to buy into, and then also to make it their own constitution. However, I hope I'm not dampening the enthusiasm of the public or the National Assembly. I think our system would have to improve incrementally. And it has in the past improved incrementally. There are a number of issues that have been brought about to change in the Constitution. I hope that the process which is about to be embarked upon would be such as they would be able to attend to a number of issues that will address some of the key structural problems that we have. Public wants, or they will not be so earth-shaking as to public wants, or they will not be so to the parliamentary system. I'm afraid the process would be such as may not be able to attain that objective of suddenly changing. As laudable, it may not happen that way. Of course, I'm also of the view that whatever it is that they seek to bring about, they should do it before the next round of national elections commence, because generally we tend to have our views fixed on who is going to get what out of the constitutional changes if the amendments take place maybe 6 months or a year to the national election. But if they are able to do it in the next 18 months or 24 months, there is sufficient time that I think people can say that, well, we require these changes, have impact on my prospect, as a candidate either at the national election. Or my final thought is that I do not anticipate that the constitutional amendment process will result in a manner that it is earth-shaking, or that, with due respect to those members of the House of Reps that have taken a position that it can suddenly change our system from presidential to parliamentary. The reason being that the point I started this discussion with, it is less about what system we operate, but more about who the operators are and what attitude they bring to their job that matters. It is not so much what the constitutional provision is, whether it is parliamentary, presidential, a version of French and this and that. It is what we bring to the table and how we want to operate the constitution which matters, and not so much about Westminster versus presidential.
Right. Prof, on that note, we're going to have to anchor the conversation. Thank you most kindly for your expert analysis on this one, and we really do appreciate you for making the time and for joining us on the program tonight. Thank you most kindly for your time, Prof.
It's my pleasure to be with you and to share my views on the issues that are current, and also I hope it has been quite a useful conversation that we've gone through. Thank you so much.
More than you can imagine, Prof. Thank you very much. Okay, you're still watching Daily Politics on Trust TV. We're going to take a moment to make a lot more to unpack on the state of the nation after the break. Join us again.